Welcome to The Verdict. Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett joining you again this Sunday morning. We're sure glad you'd be with us. We've got a really good show for you today. I hesitate to call him an old friend. I'll just say a frequent visitor to The Verdict, Berry Tramel. Mick, how are you doing?
I'm doing good and looking forward to catching up with Berry. And we got a lot of college football action still going on. And maybe Berry can name a member of the Thunder team that's going to take the floor for real. Big shake up there, and I know he and I want to discuss that with you.
Well, we've titled this show Sports in the COVID Era. It certainly is a different time for all of us, and I think you at home are going to enjoy hearing from Berry, and you will as soon as we kick to the commercials. So we'll do that right now and come back in a couple of minutes. You're watching The Verdict.
I was very lucky to have Holmes Tuttle as my father. In 1965, my father and two other prominent businessmen in Los Angeles went to Ronald Reagan and encouraged him to run for governor. As time went on, they garnered a number of other prominent people to support Reagan, and that's what became known as the Kitchen Cabinet. I'm Bob Tuttle. I'm the former United States Ambassador to the United Kingdom, and I'm very proud to be a Chickasaw. On the day that President Reagan was inaugurated, and there were my parents seated very close to the president in the presidential box, and I thought, you know, maybe we wouldn't be here without my father. That was a very, very proud moment. I can remember him saying to the president, "Ron, this is what I think is best for the country." Every time I come to the library, I walk down the colonnade so I can take a look at that beautiful plaque. I think of my parents, to see them there and know how important they were to the Reagans and how important the Reagans were to them. And all he wanted to do was to do what was best for his country. When my father had passed away, President Reagan spoke at his service, was very moving. And I think part of his growing up in Oklahoma made him love his country, love his nation, and the pride of being a Chickasaw.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
One of the best kept secrets about the post 9/11 GI Bill benefit is that it can be used at a trade school or a technical school, and it doesn't have to be used at a university or college. These are benefits that the veterans have earned through their service, and they should take advantage of it.
Veterans really need to understand that there are many resources offered by the Oklahoma Department of Veteran Affairs. They are there to help you find the right school for you, the school that will help you and your family make great steps into your future.
And welcome back to The Verdict, Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett. We're sure glad you joined us this Sunday. We are very pleased to bring back for another show an old friend, Berry Tramel. Berry is, of course, a sports columnist with the Oklahoman. He also is on the radio on the Sports Animal with Al Eschbach and Jim Traber on an almost daily basis. He started writing for the Oklahoman when he was 3 years old. Oh, no, wait, it just seems like it's been that long. It has been almost 30 years, however, and he's clearly Oklahoma's most outstanding sports journalist, in our opinion, and probably the same in the Southwest. He is making his 13th appearance with us, and we're really pleased to have you, Berry. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to do it. I guess that means we've got 11 live and 2 Zoom. I guess that's the way this pandemic's gone so long that we've been, this is our second Zoom appearance.
Yeah, indeed.
Barry, I'm glad you brought that up because the sports writers have been able to work remotely somewhat for years. But now you're even doing, post-game interviews by Zoom in many cases. And how has the COVID virus and all the precautions that everybody take, how has it affected your daily work schedule and your ability to cover games and get comments?
Well, what's interesting is, I don't know that anybody prefers Zoom to live communication, whether it's press conference or anything else. It does allow you to do more, though. On Mondays in the past, we've had to make a decision. Do you go to Norman to talk to Lincoln Riley? Do you go to Stillwater to talk to Mike Gundy? Both are on Zoom this year. You can hit both. They don't go head to head with their Zoom schedule. So, the Thunder season is, their practices are starting. Can't always get away and get up to the training facility, but no matter what you're doing, you generally can break out for 15 minutes, jump on the Zoom. So you can actually talk to people more than maybe in the past. It's just not as good of a communication, I would say. And
we got a Big 12 championship game coming up. And once again, Oklahoma's playing for the conference title.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is the fourth year since the Big 12 reinstituted the Big 12 championship game. And this is the fourth school to oppose the Sooners. We had TCU in 17, Texas in 18, Baylor in 19, and now Iowa State. So it's sort of the Oklahoma Invitational, and there's a carousel of teams playing the Sooners. But this is a great story for Iowa State to make the Big 12 championship game. They're ranked 7th by the College Football Playoff Committee. They've had a fantastic year. They've got a really good team. Of course, they beat Oklahoma back in October. And this is a school that's had very limited football success over the years. Mm-hmm. Their last conference championship was in 1912, the Missouri Valley. So, that's 108 years ago. So for Iowa State to elevate their program the way they have and to make it to Arlington, my only regret is that it is a COVID situation. Attendance will be limited at Jerry World. Let me tell you, if we were in normal times, I-35 would be a parking lot from Des Moines to Arlington, because Iowa State fans by the tens of thousands would migrate down to Texas to enjoy this game.
Well, changing the subject just for a little bit, what's your take on OSU's performances this year?
Cowboys just have not had the kind of season they wanted, the kind of season we thought they would have. Going into the year, I thought they would, challenge OU for the Big 12 title. Most people had them at second or third in the preseason polls. It looks like OSU's probably going to finish in the 4th spot, depending on how it all shakes out. Still a good season historically, by historic standards, but Mike Gundy's a little bit a victim of his own success. He's elevated the program so much that the fan base, and frankly everybody, is hungry for more. And OSU, it's now 9 years since their only Big 12 title. They had the disappointing loss at TCU a week ago. The offense just is not up to the Cowboys standard. Defense is really good, but the offense has not come through, and it has to be labeled a disappointing season in Stillwater.
Yeah. I want to ask you about some teams that used to be in the Big 12 conference: Colorado, Iowa State, Nebraska, Texas A&M. Looking back, it doesn't seem like they fared better or had an improved situation by bolting from the conference, does it?
No, not really. I would say with really all of them, with the possible exception of Nebraska, they're all sort of faring very similar to how they fared in the Big 12. Texas A&M this season's having a great year, is a college football playoff contender, but the Aggies are basically have been the 4th best team in the SEC West. That's sort of what they were in the Big 12 South. They'll have a couple of good years, and then a mediocre year, and then a good year, then a couple of mediocre years. That's sort of what they've done in the SEC. Colorado was a non-factor its last few years in the Big 12. It's been mostly that in the Pac-12. They had one really good year, but Missouri was pretty good in the Big 12 the last few years. It was in. It had a couple of really good years in the SEC, but for the most part has been mediocre. And so really maybe the only outlier is Nebraska, and the Huskers program just continues to slide down. Nebraska has become a mediocre program in the Big Ten, below the likes of Iowa and Wisconsin and Northwestern. It's sort of on the level of a Purdue and Minnesota. And if anybody that knows the history of Nebraska knows that's just kooky. So it's not been real fruitful for the expatriates of the Big 12. Let me ask you about a few coaches and the coaching carousel that starts about this time of year. On somebody that appears to be on his way up is the coach at Iowa State. Do you expect any change there? Yes, because I think it's a cold, cruel, dark world, and that's the way the world works. Iowa State generally will lose a great coach. Matt Campbell is a wonderful coach. What he's done in Ames is spectacular. My hope is that he looks upon Iowa State the way Bill Snyder looked upon Kansas State and said, you know what, this is a place that I'm building something special, really hadn't been done before, and I can stay here and have a legacy like no other. That's my hope. Excuse me. But if Ohio State or Michigan or Notre Dame calls, you sort of have to go. Or the NFL, I guess. And Michigan very well could call. Yeah. Texas could call, for crying out loud. So I think Matt Campbell is probably going to leave Iowa State, but I hope he doesn't. You've read my mind by mentioning Texas, because that's the other coaching situation I was going to ask you about. Tom Herman seems to be in a bit of trouble. Yeah, he got some good news a few days ago when apparently Urban Meyer told the University of Texas he's really not interested in getting back in coaching. The Longhorns were ready to pull the trigger on that one. Without Urban Meyer, Texas does not have an obvious candidate that it really wants. So that gives Tom Herman a fighting chance to stay, but it appears that he's lost the support of UT boosters. That's a mess down there in Austin always, because of Texas basically has about 15 Boone Pickens, big time donors who really want to be involved in a lot of things. And you can sort of navigate a Boone Pickens. It's hard to navigate 15 of them. So it's a tough job just on the getting along with people front. So I think Tom Herman's done a pretty good job. He's elevated Texas in his 4 years, but he hasn't elevated them much. And it's possible they will still go ahead and make a move this season. Well, on that note, we need to take a break, and we'll come back to that if you'd like after we get back. Folks, you're watching The Verdict with Berry Tramel and Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank #2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Meyers, Mick Cornett, and Berry Tramel joining you this Sunday morning talking about sports in the COVID era. Mick, where are we?
Barry, let's talk about the University of Tulsa and their fine season.
Well, it's a great year for TU. They've lost only the one game, the season opener in Stillwater. Very tight game, 16-7. And since then, Tulsa has won every game it's played in the American Conference. Now, Tulsa has been affected by the COVID as much as any school in America in terms of cancellation or postponement of games, usually by the opponent. This game scheduled for yesterday on Saturday against Cincinnati, which is ranked 8th, that was canceled by the COVID. Now they turn around and play Cincinnati again next weekend for the American Conference Championship. But it's a fabulous season for Tulsa. They've done a couple of major comebacks in East Carolina and SMU, and really have a strong defense. And for a program completely off the radar nationally, they become a fixture in the college football playoff rankings. So it's, in many ways, it's a breakout year for Tulsa, and I think has really elevated that program and going to be very fruitful in the years to come, what they've been able to do this year.
Switching to basketball, the Thunder are about to play. They're going to start the season at least with no fans and not very many players that people are familiar with.
Well, no fans in attendance.
That's right.
The players will be in attendance. We just won't know who they are. Here's what strikes me as completely odd about the Thunder. There is one player on the Thunder left who played with Russell Westbrook, and Russell's only been gone 18 months, 19 months, and Hamidou Diallo is the only guy left that was on the team with Russell. So it's a complete roster makeover. The Thunder clearly is trying to rebuild, and they're going to rebuild through the draft. The way you do that is you tear it down and play it out for a year or two and hope for big time draft picks. I think that's going to happen. The Thunder's roster is clearly no better than 14th out of the 15 teams in the West, and maybe 15th. So I think a high draft pick is headed the Thunder's way next year, plus all the supplemental picks that Sam Presti's traded for. It's not anything like we're accustomed to. We're used to all these great teams and these great individuals and all-star caliber players, and really the Thunder is starting over with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a cast of characters. So it's something we're going to have to get used to, going to have to adjust as a fan base, as media, anybody that follows the Thunder. But I do think it bodes well for the future. And in 2 or 3 years, the Thunder will have a bright young nucleus that could be capable of mounting another charge towards Western Conference contention. So we're just going to have to live through it and realize that players like Darius Baisley and Lou Dort, Justin Jackson, those are going to have to going to have to take the place of Paul George and Chris Paul and Steven Adams, and doesn't really set well with us, but we're just going to have to live with it.
Barry, will the media be attending the games?
The media is allowed in to some degree. I'm not sure what the restrictions are. I'm not sure where we'll be sitting. The general press row at Chesapeake Arena is one of the all-time great sardine cans. There is, this is how I type. Like that, my elbows are virtually together when I'm at Thunder games. I assume they'll space us out quite a bit more. They will have room to space us out more. But there will be a lot. I don't know that NBA teams are going to allow visiting writers. I'm not sure if there's going to be much traveling by the media. I think a lot of the broadcasters will call the games remotely. That's how the Thunder ended up, and every team did with their own broadcasts down in the bubble in Orlando. So it's going to be very different this season. To me, it's almost a perfect time. If you're going to rebuild and tear down and tank, this is the time to do it, because it's not like we could fill the arena this season anyway. It's not like people would get, we're going to get excited in terms of the money to be spent the economic downturn. If you're going to tear down, this seems like the perfect time to do it for those reasons. And it just sort of worked out for the Thunder that way.
Barry, let me ask you, you mentioned the model of tear down and build back through draft picks and the like. Are there any teams that have done that pretty successfully that you can recall?
Well, the model for this is the current Philadelphia 76ers, who did a massive teardown and were just literally awful for 4 years. And what it's amounted to is they got Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. And the last 3 years, they've been very competitive and very good and very exciting. Now, they've also won one playoff series. So it's no guarantee. Tanking is not a guarantee. If you had the guarantee, everybody would do it more.
Yeah.
But I'll give you another team that's done it, and that's the Thunder. Actually, the Seattle Supersonics before they got to Oklahoma City. But this is what Sam Presti did as soon as he was hired as a 29-year-old general manager back in 2006, I think it was. He traded Ray Allen from Seattle. He traded Rashard Lewis. Those were the two best players in Seattle. He got a bunch of draft picks. Kevin Durant was already ready to be drafted by Seattle. He added Jeff Green. The next year in the draft, Russell Westbrook. The year after that, James Harden. Away we go. So Sam Presti's done this before to great acclaim. It worked fabulous. Now, I don't think another Kevin Durant is headed our way because God makes a Kevin Durant about once every 100 years. And Oklahoma City's got its share of Kevin Durant. But, really good players, potential stars, are headed to Oklahoma City because of the draft and the teardown. So I think the future's fairly bright, and teams have done it with success. You just have to be patient.
Let me ask you a couple of questions about the Rockets. Westbrook was with the Rockets, I guess, just one season, and now he's gone. From what I read, and I have no other source, James Harden is unhappy and wanting to get out of there. What's going on there? By the way, we just have a couple of minutes left in this segment. Go ahead.
Okay, well, it's not gone well in Houston. They've been successful, but they haven't been happy. This is, they've now brought 3 superstars to Houston to play with James Harden. None of the 3 worked out. Dwight Howard, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook. At some point, you're going to have to say it's James Harden's problem, not those other guys. Now John Wall is in Houston. That doesn't seem like a great fit. 2 guys that really need the ball in their hands. So James Harden clearly wants out of Houston. That's good news for the Thunder because the Thunder has 2 Houston first-round draft picks in the coming years. If the Rockets crater, better draft picks for the Thunder. So that's one to keep an eye on. Where will James Harden land if the Rockets decide they have to trade him?
Barry, we don't have much time left, but college football, college basketball, there's a lot of disruption as far as who's a senior, who wants to come back. Your thoughts on how they've dealt with all that and the kind of the mess it creates for people trying to make plans or to even talk about who's going to be back next year?
It is a mess. Coaches have to balance scholarship numbers and all those things. But here's the thing to remember. In general, college athletes are not as enamored with the college athletic experience as the rest of us are. We think a linebacker or a point guard or somebody, hey, they got another year. That's great. Oftentimes they don't want another year. They're ready to go on with their life, whether it's professional sports, whether it's the mainstream workforce, whatever it is. Oftentimes they're not as crazy about college athletics as we are. And so I'm not sure that as many players as we think are going to take advantage of this extra year of eligibility.
On that, we're going to have to wrap it up. Barry, thank you so much for joining us again this Sunday, and it was wonderful and informative and appreciate it very much.
You bet.
We'll be back. You're watching The Verdict.
It used to be okay in hospitals. It used to be okay in movie theaters. It was okay in classrooms, restaurants, and airplanes. But thanks to a greater understanding of the dangers, that's not okay anymore. So now that we know secondhand smoke causes lifelong health problems, Why is it still okay to smoke with children in the car? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's get serious about protecting kids. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
You have children come from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids got to know they can trust you. And that's what we've tried to do with these kids.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to The Verdict, Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett. We were very pleased today to have Berry Tramel on. He's all I know about sports, and because that's where I get my information, and I hope it was useful to our viewers. Mick?
Yeah, you know, sometimes you have a guest and you're afraid to ask a question because you're wondering if they have the answer. I never really worry about that with Berry. I can just get him on a topic and he can converse in a way that's interesting and informative. You can subscribe to The Oklahoman and get more from Berry, theoklahoman.com. That's oklahoman.com. And we have a website, theverdict.tv.
Thanks very much for joining us today. We really did appreciate you tuning in. We hope you enjoyed Berry Tramel, and we will be back next Sunday with another show. You've been watching The Verdict.